Chris? Chris? Chris?
Okay, I think this will be a good spot. I think. Yeah, this will work. Look, I gotta be quiet, because today we're playing a little game of hide and go seek. I don't know if you play hide and go seek. It's super fun. It's real simple if you've never played. One person hides, and then another goes and seeks, like looks for them. So,
Chris!
I gotta just be a little quiet so that Pastor Jeff doesn't hear me.
Chris? Where are you? Chris? Hey, there you are. Chris! I see you under the chairs. Come on. It's time.
Well, so much for being quiet. So much for having what I thought would be a great hiding spot. He found me. Anyways, the reason I'm hiding is our Bible story today. We're going to talk about two people who hid. But more than that, it's not just the story about the people who hid. It's a great story because of the person, a woman named Rahab, who helped hide them. But before we get into all that, I'm going to move to a slightly less cramped spot, if you don't mind, if that's okay with you. Let's go, and we'll go somewhere else to talk about our story today, okay? Well, in Hebrews chapter 11, we read this list of people who had incredible faith. And because of their great faith, they did absolutely amazing and brave things. Now, do you remember what faith is? Faith is choosing to trust God in every situation. It's a choice, and it's choosing to trust God in everything. Not just when we have all the information, not just when we like what we hear from God, but even when things are hard or scary or the future's unknown, or it's intimidating in so many different ways, painful maybe even, but also good. Also when we know what's going to happen, and we even in situations of great joy, we still are trusting God, and that's faith. It's a choice, regardless of what's going on around you in your present life. So, in Hebrews 11, we've got this long list of people who had incredible faith. And the point of Hebrews is that the writer is pointing out that they didn't just, it's not something they believe, but it's something they put in action. Well, we're going to read about, our story today really focuses on one of the people mentioned in Hebrews 11, a woman named Rahab. And Hebrews 11 just touches on it very shortly, kind of like this one sentence synopsis of her great faith and what she did because of it. But we're going to look at the bigger story, the fuller picture of what happened, and that comes to us from Joshua chapter 2. So we're going back to the Israelites' journey from Egypt to the promised land, to Canaan, where they would become the land of Israel, where they become the country of Israel, the nation people of Israel. And at this point, Moses had died on the mountain, and all of Israel was on the east side of the river, the Jordan River. You think about the Jordan River, kind of like if you're in the Okanagan, you kind of know how our valley has this big essentially river, but it's a lake running through it. Jordan River's like that, but think much tinier, much skinnier. But it separated the land, north to south. And the Israelites were on the east side, but they needed to get to the west side. No bridge. But we do read that the river, there were spots where it was pretty shallow and they could just walk across really easily. So that's how it wasn't uncommon for people to cross the river and go back and forth. And there they were. They were on the one side of the river and they looked across and they knew across the river, that's the land God was leading us to. But there's a problem. The first thing they see as they look across the river is they see this giant city, a great walled city. And they knew that in order for them to enter that land, they were going to have to do business with this city. And the city was called Jericho. And they knew that really business meant like a war. And so they looked at Jericho and they were a little intimidated, right? Oh man, the soldiers of Jericho, they were the biggest and they were the meanest and the smelliest and the hairiest and the toughest. Okay, well, we don't actually know exactly what their soldiers were like, right? But we knew that they had this great army. And so what did Joshua do? He sent 2 spies into the land to go check it out. Because all they could see from a distance was these great walls. And they knew it had high walls and strong walls. And they knew that it wasn't going to be easy to just walk on in. So he sent 2 spies to check it out. Get an idea. What's going on in Jericho? How are the people feeling about all this? So off they went. And they snuck into town. They snuck across the river. They snuck into town. They started peeking around. But pretty soon the army found out. And the king found out. And they all started looking for these spies. And if they got caught, man, they were in trouble. They were going to be toast. But thankfully, before the army could find them, this woman Rahab found them. And she took them to her house and she hid them. She hid them up on her roof under some stalks of flax, right? Had all this grain just up there storing in the sun, right? And she hid them under it. Well, we read that actually her house was built into the wall of the city. And so essentially she hid them on the top of the wall and they were up there hiding. Well, sure enough, all of a sudden there's a big knock at the door, right? And it's the guards. And they're looking for the spies. And they're asking her all these intimidating questions if she's seen them and if she knows where they were and if she knows if they're scared of them and all these questions. And thankfully, though, she convinces them that they should go look somewhere else. And the guards take off and they leave and they go searching in another spot for the Israelites. And she goes up and she goes to the roof and she tells them the guards are gone and she helps them escape. She lowers them out the window of her house and they climb down the wall and they go and hide in the forest outside of Jericho. But why did she do it? Well, thankfully she tells us. Before she sends the spies off, she tells them why she was helping them. And you know what? Let's actually hear it in her own words. Because in Joshua chapter 2, verses 9 to 11, this is what we read there. She says this to them. I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did in Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Ammonites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. Wow, isn't that incredible? She helped them because she knew about God and she believed what she heard. She had faith. She acted on her faith, and that action was helping the spies, helping them hide, and then later, as we read on, choosing to join Israel and becoming part of that movement. She knew that God was the true God, that he had power and authority, and he was the one acting on behalf of Israel. He was doing the good work. Now, it's really important to note that she wasn't the only one who knew about God. In fact, she talks about how everybody in the city knew. They all knew, but she's the only one who acts in faith. She's the only one who put that faith into action and who trusted it. Well, next week we're going to look more into what happened, right, as Israel crossed the river and they had to do business with Jericho. But we'll get to that. You know, spoiler alert, Rahab lives. Right? Now, we started by talking about Hebrews 11. There's another place in the New Testament, right? Hebrews is a letter near the end of the New Testament. But there's another place in the New Testament where her name appears. And it's in Matthew. You see, Matthew has a history, a genealogy, it's called, a list of the ancestors of Jesus. And she is part of that, right? Her faith in action led her to join Israel, help the spies, and as a result, she entered the lineage of Jesus. She's listed in there as like a maybe a great grandmother of King David, or maybe a great, or you know what? It's complicated because the word that says mother in Matthew's genealogy, well, that can mean mom, like you and I would talk about our mother, but it can also mean grandma or great grandma or great grandma, like, and it just goes on. It just means basically you're a female who's like older by at least a generation, and that there's some kind of relationship there in a motherly way. And so so we don't exactly have, and sometimes in the genealogies, to shorten them, they kind of just put the key important people in. And so, but there she is in Matthew 1, part of the line of people who became, led to King David and then ultimately to Jesus. So Rahab's life is this great example of how all of us can act on our faith. We can all demonstrate faith with action. And now the question for us today is really this: how are we going to put our faith into action this week? What are we going to do to demonstrate our faith? So there's lots of ways we could do that, right? We can tell the truth. We can help people. We can stand up for those who are being mistreated. We can show forgiveness to people who wrong us. We can show kindness to everyone. All of those are great ways to put faith into action. And the question for you is, what are you going to do this week? Let me leave you with that challenge, guys. Have a super awesome week, and we'll see you again real soon.